Welcome to Influence Interviews, where my mission is to introduce you to people who will have a positive impact on your practice because of their expertise, their experience, and their example of great leadership. With the recent ADA data breach, it is a reminder of how vulnerable we all are and how important it is to be smart in protecting ours, our patients' data, our clients' data. Today, we have a repeat guest, Kate Crockett, because of this, and I'm so excited. DK Carr is my favorite cybersecurity firm, and I'm happy to have Kate back to talk a little bit about this.
Happy to be back.
Thank you for being here.
Absolutely.
So, Kate, what do you think with this ADA data breach? First of all, what does it actually mean for dentists?
Well, it's funny because Debbie, the owner of DK Carr and Associates, she was literally just talking to somebody at the ADA 10 days before this happened and said, what do you guys do? Who's doing your cybersecurity? Oh, we're good. And 10 days later, they got hacked. And so, you as much as you think you're good, sometimes you're not good. And, what happened was they have all of those members of the ADA, they have their information now, whether it be their practice information, their personal information. So, what we did, we were proactive, of course, we did some videos on it, hoping, to get the word out. But we also contacted our clients saying, hey, this is going on, make sure that you're aware. And protect, make sure you're protecting yourself. So, and they were serious. The hackers, I can't remember exactly the name of them, but Black Gangsta Group, I think was the name of the hackers, and they came out and they started leaking information to the dark web to say, hey, take this seriously. We really do have the data. So I urge all dentists out there, change passwords, look at your accounts, make sure your due diligence. So yeah, it's definitely a threat.
Awesome. Yeah, it definitely is. And I appreciate your thoughts on that.
You know how scary it is? It's many clients and potential clients that we did email and told them about this information. 2 of them responded.
Really?
So I think that's another whole part of things is people just aren't there yet. And I don't know what it is with doctors. They think it's not going to happen to them. And we keep saying this, it's not a matter of if it's ever going to happen, it's a matter of when it's going to happen. And so
why do they have that mentality? Do they think they're too small for like small potatoes? So it only happens to the big ones. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And the funny thing is dentists they think that they're like, oh, we're not the big guys. They're not coming after us. Actually, it's just the opposite because they know that you don't have the, healthcare providers like huge hospitals, things like that. They have an entire department that takes care of that. They have the CISOs in place. So they're actually going for the smaller guys, the dentists that have all the same information. You have all the PHI, you have their credit card information, their insurance information. So you have all of the necessary things that they're looking for. And they know that you're actually the ones not taking care of your cybersecurity. They know that you're lackadaisical on that. So they're taking advantage of that.
I want to touch on something we've talked about in earlier conversations, and that is the belief that they're taken care of through their IT. Will you just touch on that one more time?
Yes. Yeah, we actually just did a video on this. So when you hear, we hear it all the time, oh, my IT's taking care of that. IT and MSPs are not there to take care of your cybersecurity, your full framework. Now, do they do some security? Yes, absolutely. Because they're there for your hardware and your software. And they're doing patches, they're doing updates, they're making sure that hopefully, fingers crossed, they're making sure you have good passwords. Everybody's a unique user and have their own passwords. We still find that they're not even doing that. But we've taken a step further. We do the entire framework. So there's certain guidelines that we look at. We are looking at administrative, we're looking actually at the physical, and we're looking at technical. Well, out of those 3, IT's usually taking care of most of the technical guidelines. but you have all of the other things. You got all the administrative. They're not sitting there doing your policies and procedures, and they're not actually coming in. I mean, when we go into an on-site visit, we actually are looking at your fire extinguishers. We're looking at how many people have keys to the office, or if you have a code, how many people have the code? Where's your entries and exits, and who can come in and, have the accessibility to your office. So we're looking at a lot more than just the technical side. And of course, we do look at that as well. And we work with the MSPs and the IT. So we're not in competition. We do not want to do what they do. We want to do what we do. We want them to do what they do because they do it well. We want to work together. So we're really partners together. And it's something that we have to get through to them that, hey, we're not here to be a threat. And hopefully when we come in, we're saying, hey, great job. This is awesome. But maybe there's things here and there that we can ask you to change or, work on. But there's definitely a difference. And I think people need to understand that. Don't let them give you that false sense of security that I'm good because my IT guy told me I'm cyber safe. And it's not true. That's not the case.
Yeah.
Or I love the words, I'm 100% HIPAA compliant by my IT and MSPs. Nobody is ever 100% HIPAA compliant. It's an ongoing thing. So if you hear those words, be cautious. And, there is a rule that they want a third party to come in and do your risk analysis and assessment. Because I use the analogy, do we give third graders their tests and go, hey, go test, go grade that yourself? Every third grader be like 100%, we got an A, so it's same kind of thing. If you have your IT and that's the only people that are touching your network and, working with you, who's testing them? Who's testing what they're setting up for you? Because if they're testing themselves, they're never going to tell you that they've done something wrong. So
and you don't know what you don't know.
Sense of security,
Yes, and you don't know what you don't know. So I feel like it's really important for, to have that feedback. It's kind of like
absolutely
the expression, you can't see the label from inside the jar. And that's true for your IT department too, to have that backup and that feedback. And I love that you talked about being a partner.
We have a great, and we have client, and back in the day when Debbie first started working with him, he was one of those ones, I've got it taken care of. My dad is actually a CISO. And so I know everything. I've set everything up myself. And Debbie said, well, I'm telling you, I don't think you do. And so he actually got his father on a call with him and said, I'm doing this and this and this. I'm right. And he goes, no, son, actually, you're not. Debbie's right. So even if they're in the family, and we see that a lot, we see a lot of doctors have, their spouse does their IT and and it's great. And if they, are doing it, that's wonderful, but still have that third party come in, still have somebody like DK Carr and Associates come and do your risk analysis. And so we can just say, yep, they're right, they're good, but here are other things that we need to do too.
So you gave a couple examples already, but give me an example of what a breach, because we're going to get into incident response, but give me a couple of ideas of what just a really small scale breach looks like. And then of course, what the worst case scenario. Can you kind of touch on that?
Yeah. So when you're looking at phishing emails right now, that's probably, and the biggest threat are your employees, to be honest. That's what you see. They're going online, they're shopping, they're answering emails that are phishing emails. So, it can be anywhere from just kind of, and the threat, the hackers, they can kind of come in and just sit there for a while. And, they can take just some information right away, but they could be in there for a long time. We've seen ones that have sat in there for a year and they're just slowly collecting information. So, and then that's where they get the bulk of it. Once they've got as much as they want, then that's when they say, hey, we've been here. I have another one that it came from the janitors. They were throwing PHI in the trash can. It wasn't even through the computers. It was literally printed material that they were throwing away. And this janitor, every night, was just collecting a little more. And he came in. Did he have a ton of information? No, but he had a pretty good database. And he said, hey guys, I've got all this information of yours. So you're going to give me so much money or else I'm going to release it.
Wow.
Yeah. So it can come from all sorts of places. That's why, the training is really important in offices, to have that ongoing training. And Debbie and I always say, you have a huddle every morning, put something in that huddle every morning that's talking about, a certain policy or a procedure, definitely an ongoing training like that is going to make a huge difference, because it's the awareness. If you do once a year and you never talk about it, who's going to remember to not look at certain emails, if you're not talking about phishing? Who's going to, talk about like not throwing PHI in a trash can and instead of shredding it? If you don't it's just like, just having kids, you constantly are having to train your children, go wash your hands, flush the toilet, things like that.
It's easy, like you said, because you think that you're not probably a risk, right? Like you don't think that you're a potential risk. And then if you do it once a year, like you need some of that repetition. And part of that's making it a part of your culture, where we have talked about that as well. So speaking of part of your culture and what it looks like to move forward when you have a breach, would you go into what an incident response looks like?
Yeah. So, there's really 6 kind of phases of an incident response. So one, we just talked about, do the preparation, do your due diligence, have a plan, in place, talk about it, train about it. And then once something happens, if you're, all of a sudden somebody comes and says, hey, we've hacked you, take it seriously, identify it, the identification, where did it come from? How did it happen? Should be part of your plan. And then containment. And this is, I think, one of the biggest areas that people don't remind themselves of what to do. They kind of get that freak out mode, like something's on fire and it's like, oh my gosh, what do? You have to contain it. And so the best thing is to not just don't call 911 because they're not going to help you. 2, don't go running and unplugging everything and stuff, but do unplug the internet. That's important, because that's usually probably where it's coming from. So unplug your internet, the back of computers, they all have, the wire. Just disconnect that from your computers. Don't shut everything down. Don't start erasing things, and that's another thing, is making sure, and then the eradication, and the recovery. So those parts are, you making sure you have your backups. How often do you do backups? So when something like this happens, how far back are you going to have to go? And think about how much money, if you're down a day, or if you're down 2 days, you're down a week, how much money are you losing out on that? So making sure that you have your backups is going to be really important for you to get back up and going again. And then the last one is, because you're back up and going, it's not like, woohoo, we're done, let's go. How did it happen? Learn your lesson. So do you have to change a policy and write something else in your policy for the next time this happens? That's important too, is learn the lesson from what happened and make sure to change whatever you need to change so it doesn't happen again.
Yeah.
So those are the 6 phases of an incident response. But practice. I always say, we do tabletop exercises, which is basically giving you a scenario of a hack or a breach, and putting it to your employees of, okay, this sort of thing happens. We've just been hacked. We were breached. All of our patient data is out there. What are the steps? What are we doing? So it's kind of, I always love my scenarios. I think about it as a fire drill. We know in our heads, we've got stop, drop, and roll. Why do we know that? Because we've been trained on it since we were little kids. We were at school trained on it. I grew up in California and we had earthquakes. I know what I do in an earthquake. I'm down under my desk or standing in a doorway, because we've been trained our whole lives to know what to do. And it's exactly the same thing when it comes to an incident. An incident happens, you need to train constantly your employees from the bottom to the top, what do you do? How do you identify, something fishy? Your employees should get emails and be like, this doesn't look quite right. Why is my CEO asking me to go get $500 worth of gift cards? But it happens. And I mean, I've had it happen to me. We had a past employer, 3 of us got emails that looked like it came from our CEO. And I hadn't even read it, but it went to our intern, and she was smart enough, because we had trained enough, that she calls and goes, Kate, I got an email from Regine saying she wanted me to go get gift cards. And I was like, no, she doesn't. I said, but we've trained you well enough where you knew that there is something fishy about that.
I love that you gave that example, because that does seem very internal. That would maybe not be that rare, but and maybe that's even been a real thing. I was actually,
I mean, even if $50, $100, somebody may be like, oh, maybe they just need it, and they go get it. You never know.
Mm-hmm. I love that you gave that example. So with our last few minutes in incidents response, Kate, are there any other things that you would like for our viewers to know?
I mean, I think really the preparation is the biggest. Prepare, because we always say it, it's not if, it's when. So prepare on all sorts of different incidents, give those different scenarios, give what to do if you get an email like that, give what to do if somebody calls and they've got, they're claiming they have all your data, and the best thing is when you have an incident, stop, unplug the internet, and call somebody like us.
And call DK Carr.
Call DK Carr. Yeah, because there's again, same scenario, a different scenario. What do you do at a crime scene? What if you have a murder scene? Is everybody like, oh, let's pick everything up, let's pull the body away, and oh, here's the bullets and stuff? No, it's stop everything, corner it off, and let the investigators come in. And there's a forensic investigators that come in and, are a part of the breach. And so when we work with people like that come in and they really investigate, how did they get in? Where did they come in from? And stuff like that. So really think about it. When you are breached, it is a crime scene. Don't call 911, call DK Carr.
Yeah, I can't, as part of that preparation, I can't speak highly enough to, like you said, even if you think that you are secure, it would be so well worth your time and money to bring in a professional, have them do a consult and look at that, do an assessment at a minimum, right? Yeah. And then you at least are dotting your I's, crossing your T's, and like you said, partnering with your IT to make sure that all of you are on the same page. I love that.
Well, to be honest with doing that, then you're going to be falling under the safe harbor rule. And that's a newer rule to HIPAA. And what that basically is saying, that if you can prove that you've had somebody like DK Carr come in the last 12 months, and you are at least taking it seriously and putting plans together, you may not be, fully compliant, and you may not have every policy and procedure in place. But if you can prove that you've been working with somebody like us, then you won't have all of those fines. And you get fined not only by the federal, there's fines for state too. So you have to report to federal and state when you get breached. So, but if you can prove that, then you will fall under the safe harbor rule. And so that's what I encourage everybody to do is at least start something, at least have that initial contact with us where we are coming in, we're doing that first on-site visit. And then it's a baby steps from there, it's baby steps to get there. But at least then if something does happen, then you're protected under that.
Well, I love it. Look right behind her. You can see how to get in touch with Kate at dkcar.com, and her phone number there. Oh, even your phone number has the letters. I love it. Or DK Carr. What is it?
DK Carr and the number
Carr
one.
And the number one. Oh my gosh, that's awesome.
We're number one.
Thank you, Kate, for being here. We really appreciate your time and your expertise.